Okay, we start. Hello, everyone. We're happy to welcome you online. Today, we're having an international lecture, and today we're going to speak about positive psychology. So, how to harness the power of positive psychology in everyday life. And I'm happy to give the floor and introduce to our today's speaker, Sherry Kelly, Dr. Sherry Kelly, PhD, a licensed clinical psychologist and clinical neuropsychologist with more than 30 years experience in the field of child development. Dr. Kelly began her career as an educational researcher in 1977 at the University of Minnesota Center for Youth Development and Research. Dr. Kelly completed her undergraduate degree in social education at Boston University. Well, Sherry, we are happy to welcome you. We're happy to listen to you. And dear colleagues, all your questions are welcome in the chat box. And of course, you can switch on your mics just after the slides and speak loudly. Well, we start. Sherry?
Thank you so much, Lilia, for inviting me today. It's wonderful to meet everybody. I'm sorry, I'm speaking in English. I wish I could speak to you in multiple languages, but I'm going to ask if there's anything I say today that you want repeated or perhaps translated. Please let us know in the chat room, okay? When I spoke with our dear host yesterday, one of the things I said that a good thing that's come out of these very challenging times has been the opportunity to meet such wonderful, brilliant, dynamic people from around the world through webinars. So I'm so very honored to be here today. I have a couple of messages about why we are doing this presentation about positive psychology. And the main purpose is that in these times, what really works for resiliency and sustaining your success is the ability to work through and cope and flourish even in the toughest of times. These times won't last forever, but the lessons that you give to your loved ones, as well as the lessons that you share with your coworkers, they will last a lifetime. So this is an opportunity to actually maybe take your management style or your work communication style to a higher level. And that's what I hope that you'll get out of today's seminar. So I'm just going to shut this down a little bit, if it's okay, Lilia, so you can share so I can share the screen with you. So we're going to learn how to harness the power of positive psychology in everyday life. So today's key goals is to understand what is positive psychology, how to use positive psychology at work, at home, and in particular, how to use positive psychology in your communication with others. Is there a connection between success and happiness? Or is it actually that happiness leads to success? Which direction does that equation move? And what are some strategies that can promote greater cognitive flexibility in your management style? I believe you've already had a wonderful presentation from someone on fixed mindset, growth mindset, the importance of being cognitively flexible. And we're going to learn some strategies about how to apply that flexibility today. So why should we be so concerned right now? Well, between what's happened with COVID and the crisis in Ukraine, as well as just the stress of modern living, 1 in 4 adults has a mental health disorder. And that is actually worldwide by estimates of the World Health Organization, not just what we see from our national institutes of mental health in the US. Since COVID, there's been a 90% increase in symptoms of depression and anxiety. Less than half of the people, at least in America, even get any treatment for their mental health distress. And this has caused a great burden on the workplace. Emotional distress has impacted employee retention and employee hiring. So here's a question. Do you think we can code for a better future with positive psychology? Can we code ourselves to be happier? Can we write a type of code, like a computer code for our brains? How much power do you think we have over our brains? Well, that is an important question that we're going to answer for you today. Yes, you can. You can code for better coping and problem solving, greater resilience, code for more flexibility and a growth mindset, and also just code for a better response pattern that will make you not only more resilient and stronger, but will actually help you flourish and project greater towards your goals of success. So some of you may have heard of positive psychology. It's a relatively newer school of psychology that came out of America. The father of positive psychology is Dr. Martin Seligman out of the University of Pennsylvania. And one of the reasons why positive psychology really developed was in response to how can we make psychology actually more practical, more user-friendly, and focus on where we're going in life instead of where we've been. The focus is more on what is right with you, what your strengths are, rather than what is wrong. So the aim of positive psychology is to catalyze, promote a change in psychology from a preoccupation in repairing what's wrong, but also to build upon your best qualities and your strengths. So positive psychology is the scientific study of what makes life worth living. It's a study of your character strengths, of your virtues, what works well for you in life. It's founded on the belief that people want to lead meaningful and fulfilling lives. We want to cultivate the very best in each person. And in business, that makes sense, right? Because you want to cultivate the best of everyone on your team in order to reach your goals. If you're in sales, you want to cultivate those relationships with your clients and focus on what's working and be positive. This also leads to a management style as well as a communication style that's done with purpose, not by accident. So here are some interesting findings about the predictive power of being positive. The level of optimism people possess is actually predictive of well-being, not only mental health. So your level of optimism and positivity will predict your overall health, as well as longevity, so how old you will live. Your attitude is very important for thriving throughout your life. Positive beliefs and self-efficacy about aging will predict your outcome. So if you are a positive person, if you are looking for the good, if you are optimistic about your future, that is actually predictive of how well you will be. On the other side, if you're negative and have a bleak or negative outlook about your future, that will have predictive power over your health. So it's not just your mental health. Negative thinking has been linked also to greater cognitive decline as we age. And I think that's interesting. Ileana, do you find that interesting, Lilia?
Yes, sure.
So how do you manage? Are you a negative manager or a positive one? We've all had negative managers, and we've all experienced how that negativity actually diminishes our productivity. Are you someone that focuses on the negative or the positive? Do you focus on your weaknesses or your strengths?
I think that I focus on my positive.
See, I can tell that you do.
Yeah.
And you know, when we give feedback that's positive to our coworkers, we should motivate them to perform better, not bring them down. So there is a wonderful free survey that you can take online that is very fun. It's very fast. It might take you 15 minutes. And I have the link right here, viacharacter.org. And it's popular with businesses in the United States. However, this has been done in 52 countries. So it has a global evidence-based research behind it. And this will give you an idea of what your character strengths are. There's 24 domains. The top 4 or 5 are really your strengths profile. And it will give you some insight on where you like to focus your energies, as well as what you perceive as the very best of you. So I highly recommend it. So how important is feedback? There's actually been some studies on this. So I wanted to give you your first brain exercise. Okay. I want you to think about emotions in a new way. I want you to think about emotions as alarm systems or alert systems. So the next time you feel overwhelmed with an emotion or overwhelmed with anxiety, or even perhaps sadness, ask yourself, don't judge the emotions, but ask yourself, what are these emotions trying to tell me? What are these emotions alerting me to? That will not only draw you to understand better what's behind those emotions or what's laying underneath, but also will get you to move from the why am I feeling this way to what can I do about it? What is the pattern? What is it about these emotions that might be making me stuck? What can I do about it? What are the times like when I have these emotions? What is in common? What are those times in common where these emotions come at me? So the next time you feel this emotion, ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me or tune me into? It could be, I'm feeling threatened. It could be, hey, I'm feeling unprepared. Maybe I don't know enough. Maybe the anxieties because I perceive a threat. It's a very interesting exercise. What do you think about that, Lilia?
I like this exercise. Even yesterday when we were testing this presentation, so I tried to do it, and I like it very much. It is an effective one.
Good, I like it. I hope this works. So getting back to the management style, this was an interesting research study that was done with functional MRI. So the subjects are actually in the MRI scanner and they're doing tasks. And what they found out was that if you have a positive, compassionate, visionary approach to managing or coaching, people will respond better. Okay. They will be more motivated and they will be encouraged. So if you're positive in your communication and supportive, this actually lights up the brain in a different way than if you're negative when you're communicating. So I find this really interesting, and this is just more evidence on the power of being a positive communicator. So one of the core beliefs of positive psychology and how to use that energy in everyday life is that your habits of thinking are not, carved in stone. You can change the way you think. Okay. You can change the way you make decisions. You have more power over your brain than you realize. So what are you in control of? Well, you're in control of your attitude. And the attitude that you have is probably more important than anything you will say as a business person, as a salesperson, as a manager, as a parent, as a partner. People tend to remember the attitude more than the words. So you're in control also of preparing for situations. So you have the chance to prepare in advance emotionally for many situations in life, not all, but you can prepare yourself for a tough meeting in advance, or a difficult situation that you can anticipate with a loved one, or preparing for how to deal with a behavioral problem with a child, for example, how to deal with a tough customer. And you can practice your response sets or your responses in advance as well. You can anticipate. We have that ability. And then you're also in control of how much effort you want to put in to a situation and how much effort you want to become a better communicator, become more in control of your emotions, become more resilient. So this is a very famous talk from Gandhi, but it's really true. To keep your thoughts positive, because your thoughts become your words. And ultimately your words will become your behavior will become your habits will become your values, and then your values will ultimately become your destiny. So I always like to walk around the brain because in my training, I'm also a neuropsychologist as well as a clinical psychologist. And very simply, a lot of our reactions to emotions happen in a very primitive part of our brain. We are reactive. And the positive psychology strategies I'm sharing with you today are meant to move you from that primitive center of the brain to become more proactive and in the more frontal part of the brain, where we have something called executive functioning. And this is, going to propel you from just being stuck in the feeling to actually doing something positive about it and being more goal-oriented, being more proactive and less reactive. So there are neural networks in our brain that store our memory. And these networks connect our feelings, our responses, and we have built-in alarm systems that teach us, you may have heard this, fight or flight. There's also freeze, okay? So can your cognition, can your way of perceiving the world change these neural networks? Can you actually change the default mode of your brain? And the answer is yes. So you actually have more power over your brain and your responses than you realize. So here's another exercise, okay? I want you to try saying nothing negative for the next 24 hours and see how you feel. And it's not that easy to do, but it's important, okay? Setting goals that's important. Setting goals is important, but achieving the goals are harder, okay? Setting goals is a thought, but achieving goals involves behavior change and action, okay? You have to ask yourself, what is in the way of you changing your behavior? When do you put the brakes on? So these are 3 C's of positive psychology in everyday life. Okay. Cultivate, cope, and commit. Okay. The 3 C's. So cultivate the positive emotions, experiences, and values, expectations in your relationships. Put your energy on the positive. Coping, learn how to cope effectively with the negative. Learn how to cope with painful emotions. Understand what those emotions are trying to tell you. That's the C in the cope. And then commit to personally meaningful goals. Assign meaning to something. That also helps you with coping. Why am I going through this right now? What lessons have I learned? What can I take with me from this very stressful situation or the disappointments? And especially now with what is going on in Ukraine, to assign meaning to it. There's what you have been through, what you're going through, okay? And this is important to validate yourself, because during hard times, we're not good to ourselves. We worry about everyone else. We worry about survival. And in that position, we fail to take care of ourselves and give us what we need. So I'm going to stop right now before this next exercise and just ask if there's any questions.
No question.
Anything in the chat room? I see some things in chat, but I just want to see if there's any questions before we go.
Oh, I think there are no questions in the chat.
Awesome. So we're going to see if you have a fixed or growth mindset. And some of you may have learned this in another presentation, but let's go through this again because it's fun. Okay. Now, as people in business, we really want a growth mindset, right? Because ultimately that is going to be how we succeed and survive. We have to be flexible. But with that, we also have to learn, to adjust our mindset. So which ones are you? Are you in the green or are you in the red? Okay. And oftentimes when we're managing younger people, they tend to be more in the red. It's all or nothing thinking. Lilia, do you know what I mean by that?
Yes, sure. Because we had about a year or a year and a half presentation and the lecture on fixed and growth mindset. But probably for those who didn't manage to attend that lecture, so you just can mention it once again.
Yeah, so this is from the work of Dr. Carol Dweck in the US, and it has a lot to do with your ability to overcome disappointments and also, how you see yourself in the world. And the fixed mindset in the red is this thinking that's very rigid. I'm either good at it or I'm not. You're either a winner or a loser. I don't want to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. If I succeed, it's good. If you succeed, I feel threatened. My score on a test determines everything. My review from my manager determines everything. I have very little control over my destiny. People with a fixed mindset tend to be more reactive and less proactive. And they are not good problem solvers. They oftentimes have a type of tunnel vision, and they can't see solutions very well. I don't think they're good people to have on a management team, because you want people that are able to be flexible, be able to adjust to changing situations, and who are motivated by their efforts and their own sense of agency in the world, or their own sense of self-efficacy, and not just dependent on other people telling them who they are or what to do. The growth mindset actually is a mindset that is better mentally adjusted. They don't give up when frustrated. They like to be challenged. They see challenges as a positive. They don't let failures break them or stop them. They are inspired by other people's success or your success. They understand the importance of attitude and effort. So when we talk about, a fixed mindset, it's interesting to ask people what triggers their fixed mindset. And oftentimes it's a perceived threat or a failure. Fixed mindset people believe that, qualities, personality, and decision-making are fixed and rigid. You can't change your attitude. You can't change how you manage. That's just not true. But we've all worked with people like that who are very rigid. This can have a actually paralyzing impact on someone, because these are the people that see life as a risky series of tests to maintain status. Lilia, does that come out? And I hope people understand that, because that's just really an important part of it, of understanding the fixed mindset. These are people that look at the negative, that look at the glass half empty, and that they see work as a series of tests instead of opportunities. They're not risk takers. They don't want to learn from failures. They don't want to try new things. I don't think these are the kind of people you want on your team if you're a manager, right? So you have to ask yourself, are your choices at work based upon a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? Are you too stressed to see alternatives? Are you broken down or stopped by failures? Do you have an all or nothing attitude or all or nothing thinking? I hope not. And I don't think you do, because if you did, you wouldn't be here right now on this webinar. Okay. So here's your next brain exercise. The next time you need to make a choice or a decision, ask yourself, is this choice getting me closer to my goal? And of course, in order to do this exercise, you have to have a goal. And goal setting is important in harnessing the power of you at work, and also as a purposeful parent or partner outside of work. So, the next time you have to make a choice, and it might be difficult, put it in relation to what your goal is. So, who is making your decisions in business? Is it that primitive brain, or is it the executive brain? Are you basing your decisions on emotion, or on reaching your goal? So primitive decision-making and why it happens, okay? Well, the reason why we sometimes default into primitive decision-making is because it is, in fact, our default mode for survival. It is how we evolved as humans. To protect ourselves. And especially when we feel a threat, we default into this primitive reactive way of thinking, where we actually can't even see alternatives. We just see the straight and narrow of, I just have to get out of the situation. So are you using your reactive brain that was in the back, or in the back and middle of your brain, or are you being more proactive, the prefrontal, frontal part of your brain? Okay, so to be more proactive and less caveman, you want to set goals, allow yourself small wins, small, or we call it micro moments of success, and being kind to yourself and learning from what you've done right, focusing on what happened well, not just what the problem was. Asking yourself, do I have tunnel vision? Am I only seeing things one way, or am I able to see alternatives? Am I able to see other resources to help me? Am I able to see different solutions? And really important, understanding the expectations of yourself and others. This is one of the biggest problems I see when I do executive coaching with younger managers. It often comes down to their stress coming from not knowing what is expected of them at work, not having clear responsibilities, not having clear goals, not knowing what their boss expects of them. And this also happens to, managers in their 30s and 40s, not knowing what's expected of them. And also the difference between what they expect of themselves and what others expect of them. So oftentimes in management, it's important to start with a discussion about expectations. The reason why we go to this negative default is because, we have something called a negativity bias. And this is from a psychologist in the US. In effect, the brain is like Velcro for negative, but Teflon for positive experiences. So, we tend to default to the negative, and that's something we should be aware of because you can work against that. Look, and that's that first exercise. Try saying nothing negative for 24 hours and see what happens. That's one way of training your brain to harness the power of positive psychology in everyday life. Okay, so when we create a negative belief system and focus on the negative, the problem has gone from a small thing that happened once to something that's permanent. It's not going to go away. Personal, it's all my fault. I messed up. I'm fine. I can't understand the why, so I'll blame myself. Or pervasive. It's always happening. And that is really steps towards disaster and failure. This is a very good book. I think it's available in other languages. It's by Norman Doidge. It's The Brain That Changes Itself. So how do you develop positive thinking? Well, it's like practice or exercise. It's not something that you can do just by being an observer. You have to actually be part of the action. It's a practice that you have to work on daily. It starts with trying to look at the positives rather than focusing on the negatives. It's by changing the way you think about emotions, as we talked about. It's the way that we think about being very purpose-driven and goal-directed, solutions-oriented rather than problem-oriented. And you make this a daily habit of how you think. And by doing it every day and thinking this way, you can actually change the way you problem solve. So how do we succeed and flourish? What does the research say? Well, Dr. Seligman did some research and looked at the times in our history where civilization has really moved forward. And he went back 2,000 years. And it's in his new book, Flourishing. But what he found in the research on how people really succeed and maintain or sustain that success is they have three things: agency, optimism, and imagination. So by agency, I mean your belief that you can make a difference, your confidence in yourself, your ability to see that you can make changes and that you have the power to do that. That you're not going to wait for someone to make your life different, but you have the power to do this. That you recognize what you have control over. Optimism very much has to do with your attitude. Do you see life in a more positive way? Do you see life as challenges that you can cope with and learn from, or as a series of tests? Like we said earlier, optimism is very much tied to that growth mindset. Do you look forward to your life 5 years from now? Do you believe your life will be better? That's something you have to ask yourself. And if not, why? Because even if you don't state it, that feeling will be permeating under everything you do. The third key factor is imagination. That again goes with the growth mindset. Can you see things in different ways? Can you create new solutions? Are you not fixed in your problem solving? Can you use resources and get help or get support, bring people together to help you reach your goals? So how do you help train your brain? Okay, this is the CARE response, C-A-R-E. And this is my friend and colleague, Linda Wallace, who was an executive at Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals. Catch yourself is the C. Catch yourself in negativity. Catch yourself when you're doing critical self-talk or when you're, in that fixed mindset. A, acknowledge it. Recognize the pain that your negativity might be causing yourself, and your self-criticism is causing you to maybe be stuck, or maybe that self-criticism is putting the brakes on from you achieving what you want. Acknowledge that your emotions are really alert systems to something that's going on. R is redo it. Change it. Speak gently to your inner critic and redirect your thoughts. Say, look, I just defaulted in the negative mindset. Let me just change that. Let me think how I can change this to positive thinking. How can I prepare positively next time? And E, encourage yourself to replace the critical negative self-talk with supportive, positive self-talk. Train yourself to be your own coach, your own wise and caring friend. So I tried to translate this in Ukrainian. Lydia, I hope it worked. Did it work, Lilia?
Yes, it works, definitely.
I'm going to stop now for any questions. Any questions, comments? Do you think any of this you guys can work and use it in your business?
You can use chat to put your questions.
Yes, or you can just, raise your hand up. I see a chat. People really like this CARE response, and this is oftentimes the slide that people like most. And before we move on, I actually want to talk about that. Lilia, is this recording going to be available to your members?
Yes, sure. We usually share the recording with the materials, with the presentation, with all the participants, so no problem. Yeah.
Great. So before I move to the next slide, I see that there might be a question or a chat.
Yeah, there are comments. Andriy, I have already do CARE on daily basis, but I think it takes longer to switch to be more positive.
Okay.
Then from Oksana, definitely it works in practice.
Good.
Katerina, I've just joined, but it's clear as for me. As for now, I've joined, but it's clear as for now. So everything is clear. So she just tries to respond.
Okay. So, just to summarize the growth mindset for those that, are new to it, identify the mindset. So when you ask yourself, am I in a growth or fixed mindset? Are you willing to take risks? Are you willing to change? How can you effectively cope with frustration and self-doubt? And I want to explain it, why it's important. Oftentimes in business, as well as in personal life. And especially if you're in Ukraine now, you're experiencing fear. And when you let fear take over, you become a victim. And so the way that we combat fear is with building more certainty, building ourselves up emotionally, knowing what our strengths are, knowing what our goals are, not allowing the negativity to overwhelm us, but to see things in a positive way so that you can keep in control, okay? Find what is good about yourself. Find what is good about your life. Do not become a victim. So we've all experienced this, Lilia, like you have this feeling at work, no matter how hard you press on the gas, it's hard to move when your other foot is on the brake. This is just a sort of analogy like driving, you know, it's like, okay, what's keeping us from moving forward in our work, or what's keeping us from making a change, or keeping us from trying to get that promotion or asking for the raise. Oftentimes it's self-doubt, fear of rejection, feeling powerless or without control, a lack of self-worth. So, you know, we want to change, but we don't because we're afraid and we put the brakes on. It's like driving a car, and you're not going to get very far if you keep putting the brakes on. And this is a question that only you can answer about yourself. You know, this is another exercise. When do you put the brakes on in your life? Or when do you put the brakes on at work? Or in sales? Oftentimes it's about rejection. So are you ready for another fun exercise? Because I'm going to throw one out at you, another thing to try. I don't want you to use but today, the word but. How do you say but in Ukrainian? I wish I knew.
In Ukrainian, no, ale, how it, yes, we pronounce it.
So don't say ale, don't say but, say and instead. And this actually, you'll feel, some people feel their brain chemistry change. I want to ask for a raise, but I'm afraid. So if you say that sentence differently, I want to ask for a raise and I'm afraid. That's not putting the brakes on now, is it? It's helping you see, okay, what can I do about it? The door's not closing. Okay, both things can happen. Maybe it's another way. I want to have a discussion with my team, but, you know, I'm not sure what we should have on the agenda. Okay, and you can change that but to an and. I want to have a discussion with my team, and I'm not sure yet about what to put on the agenda. It's just an interesting way how changing one word can change your attitude. So don't let fear be the driver of your life or at work. It can be in the back seat, but don't let it take the wheel. Okay, ask yourself what is keeping your foot on the brakes. Okay, because if you try to make changes, but you're holding back and you have a lot of self-doubt, you won't go anywhere. So this is another way to harness the power of positive psychology in your life, and it's through positive inquiry. Ask yourself, what is the positive center of my being? What's the positive core of my team at work? What's the positive core of my family? Establishing positive emotions in anticipation of events, in anticipation of meetings, actually can help you be more successful in those situations. Understanding how you can use failure for growth will make you a better salesperson, will make you a better manager. And asking yourself, what impact do I want to have today in this meeting, in this sales pitch, in this moment, as a parent, as a partner? Who do I want to be today? What is that manager I want to be today? You can write these down and just remind yourself to do this. Most of you I know this, but it's just making it happen every day at work. That's the challenge. So this is something that I developed to help executives. Also, it helps parents. It's called Shooting Par. That's why I have the golf course on there. You prepare for the negative events, P-A-R. P is for preparing. Prepare your response set in advance if you can. Think about how you want to respond. Think in advance about how you want to communicate before the situation happens. You can't always prepare for negative situations, but you can anticipate and think about them. Prepare for that meeting with your boss. Prepare for the questions you want to ask. Prepare for what he or she might say back to you, and prepare how you want to respond. Prepare for the attitude you want to have in that meeting. The A is for accommodating or coping in that situation. Accommodating could also mean accepting who you are, accepting that situation for what it is. It's tough, but what can I do about it? How can I respond? You might not be able to change the situation, but you can accommodate for and change your attitude. You can be in control of the attitude. So the A is for accommodate and also attitude. The R is for afterwards. That's reframing. Can you reframe that negative situation or reframe that even not fully negative aspect of the situation into a learning experience or a growth experience? Okay, I did really well in that meeting, or I held my own. I didn't lose control. I had a good attitude. Give yourself that positive feedback, and that's part of the reframing aspect of PAR. I'm going to ask if there's any questions about this before we go forward. No?
No questions.
Okay. So here's a discussion menu that you can ask yourself, and you can also ask, like in a management team meeting. It's a good way to teach your management team how to be more purpose-driven and more positive. And this is how we apply positive psychology at work. You can also use this if you're parents. It works great with kids too, as discussions. Who is putting limits on you? Is it yourself? Is it a voice in your head? Is it someone you're in a relationship with? Is it your boss? Tough question. Next, what would it feel like to break free of just one of your limits? Next question, if you were to move towards something, what would it be? It's just asking the question about goals a little differently. If you were to move towards something, what would it be? When do you feel the brakes go on? What did you learn about yourself this week? And what was one specific experience that helped fuel or increase that growth and learning about yourself? When I do workshops with management teams, I do breakout sessions, and usually like with 3 or 5 people. It's always an odd number. And these questions are on a sheet, and I ask them to take, half of the questions if they can, and I give them about 20 minutes to discuss in their group, each of them to answer some of these questions. And it's really powerful. This is also really good for team building. So, is there a happiness formula? Can you use an equation to understand where happiness comes from? And what is happiness? What do you think happiness is? So this is an equation that was developed by Mo Gaudat. He's the former chief business officer of Google X. And he's an engineer, so he understands happiness as an equation. He said happiness is equal to or greater than the events of your life minus your expectations of how life should behave. So oftentimes our unhappiness is in this area, the difference between our expectations and how life behaved, or what happened in our life. Oftentimes unhappiness is because we had expectations that were very different than what other people's expectations were. We may have expected our managers to behave a certain way and they behave differently, or our clients expected something very different from us than we expected of ourselves. So this is why so much of happiness and positivity at work depends on clarifying expectations. And there's like a few columns: the expectations you have of yourself in the situation, the expectations of what you expect of others, and then what you expect from others, or what you expect others to expect of you. Knowing what your boss expects of you, or knowing what your management team or your clients expect of you. What you expect from work, what you expect from your position. And that's just, it's different than responsibilities. It's what you expect to happen at work, what you expect of yourself in terms of your career. And oftentimes the problems at work and at home are because there's differences in expectations. So I'm going to stop right there and ask you what you think about this.
We have one comment in the chat box. Happiness is an absence of unhappiness. from Juliana.
That's good. One of the developers of Apple, Steve Wozniak, said happiness equals more smiles than frowns.
Really nice.
Very nice. Any other questions or comments?
No,
I like this equation. I like
Yes.
this equation. I think it's also, I think, really effective to use with if you have kids at home. It's also effective to use with them, is to clarify expectations. So I'm going to stop here and ask if there's any questions or comments, because we're coming up on 10 o'clock. I can keep going if you want, or we can just have discussion. What do you want, Lilia?
Yes, we have some comments in the chat.
Yes.
From Svetlana, fully agree with the quotient, be bold, but at the same time, haste plan B. Then from Oksana, expectation equals goal. How to divide them? This is the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So goals are something you're working towards, and your expectation is something that involves how you want the situation to happen. It's not just the goal. Goals are part of the expectation. And it's like asking yourself, how do I want to be? Not just what do I want to be? How do I want things to happen? What is the result? So it includes goals, but it's more than the goals. It's like, I expect to be a vice president one day. I want to make vice president. That's a really good goal. But what do you expect of that? Does that mean I want to have a sign on my door, or does that mean that I want to lead people, or does that mean that I want to be promoted in a certain way, or do I want someone to acknowledge that position and give it to me? So it's an interesting question you asked, and there's a lot of things involved in expectations, not just the goal that's a part of it. That's how I would answer it.
Thank you, Sherry. We have from Svetlana the comment, just realized that I'm a positive thinker with available plan B. So
I love that.
Any other comments or questions? Not yet.
Okay, so I want to just talk to you about, I want you to this, I'm just putting this as a reminder. If you want to go online to learn about your character strengths, this is the website, and it's free. I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying that this is something interesting to do that you might want to do for yourself, or as a manager, you might want to have this survey completed by the people on your team to find out what their strengths are. It shows them it's not only skills, but it's their interests, their values, what they believe their talents are, what their inner resources are, and positive personality qualities. So once they take this, what do you do with it? Okay, you find out, you are a very, let's say you find that you're judgmental, but that you also see beauty in life, or that you also are spiritual, or that kindness is really important to you. What do you do with that? I'm going to tell you. Okay, so you look at your top fives, and this is all from Positive Psychology. You will have 24 character strengths, and you look at your top 5, and those are called your signature strengths. You choose what one activity that you do during the day that is consistent with your strengths. Are you utilizing your strengths at work? Are you being recognized for your strengths? What do you think others perceive of you? Can you develop a goal and a plan where you can apply your signature strengths at work that will make your strengths shine? What strengths can you use most in teaching others or managing others, or in selling if you're in the sales field? So strengths, this is by a researcher in the States, Ryan Nemeth. It's applying the strengths, the positive psychology strengths, and what you find out in the survey is a new way of connecting, not just communicating to people. It's interactive and independent, it's interdependent, and realize that individuals express their strengths in different ways and in different circumstances. And I use this in teaching and managing. It's called the SEA model, S-E-A. So as a manager, what you can do is spot the character strength in your team or in your client or in your boss. okay, I spotted kindness today, or I spotted your, your strength of wanting to be fair, or I spotted, your strength of being critical in understanding a situation. So you're not making it a negative. I'm just going to use kindness as an example here because it's easy. So you do S, I spotted kindness today. Okay. Then you explain to your coworker or your boss or your trainee, I saw you express kindness today. I think that's a strength of yours. And then the A, appreciate. I really appreciate that you shared your kindness with your friend, or you shared your kindness with a coworker today. So you're validating them. People work better when they're validated. And not just in a shallow way or in a not authentic way, an authentic way, when you really seeing who they are. And this is an easy way to see who they are. And you can do this with yourself. Okay. So in using the character strengths to navigate through life, you have two pathways. You can either do it a well-being pathway or an adversity pathway. So using your character strengths has a buffering and bolstering role. Okay. You can mediate the adversity that you might be experiencing, mediate the stress, but also bolster and support and promote your mental wellness and your success by using your inner resources. So you're protecting yourself from the stresses of life while also making yourself stronger by tapping into your character strengths. Does that make sense, Lilia?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So what we're saying today in closure is that we want to shift your perception from being negative to positive. People can be more hopeful by looking at things in a different way. We're not trying to ignore the negative thoughts or the reality, but we're trying to balance them in a way with positivity. And I'm going to leave this is the last thing I'm going to say, is because gratitude practice is an important way of harnessing positivity in your life every day. Okay. Acknowledge your blessings, acknowledge your strengths, appreciate your support, appreciate what you give to your family, to your coworkers, to your clients. Acknowledge the power of you. You're all unique. You all have talents. So I'm going to end it right there and ask if there's any questions or comments.
There is one comment from Andri. I think to balance it, it's a key idea to balance all of those. Yeah.
Yes. Any questions?
There is no questions in the chat box, but probably we can ask the participant to switch on the mics and to speak loudly. Dear colleagues, please, this is the opportunity to speak, to ask questions, comments. This is the time.
I love seeing everybody from around. I love seeing everybody from around Europe. It's great.
So no questions so far.
I have a question for you. Did anybody learn anything new today?
Oh, thank you for the inspirational lecture. There is one comment in the chat box.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Sure, we learned. So for me, for example, I really impressed by this fixed and growth mindset. And for me, it's very, it's very valid. And actually, the question is how to change this fixed, mindset, growth mindset. How to, what kind of, maybe tips or advices you can, just give us to make this shift in our brains or in brains of other, just people.
Okay, so I'm going to show you that. I have that actually on a slide. So
yeah, I remember some of them, yeah. Mhm.
So just hold on a second because you're okay. So this is how you change. And it's not that clear, but I'm going to try it, and I'm going to try to explain it. And so how you change is actually spelled out in English, CHANGE. It's an easy way to remember. So the way that you change your attitude and your behavior is, first of all, create clear, authentic goals for positive change. That's the C. Clarify what you want to change, why you want to change.
You have some target, yeah. So it means that you need to focus on the experts, just on this target or on this goal, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good, yeah. So
H is hope. Explore what your strengths are. What are you good at? What are your strengths? And you can do that with the VIA. Explore your resources, your internal resources. You have to have both. You have to have the goals and you have to have the hope and the belief in yourself to change your attitude. And you ask yourself, is my attitude getting me closer to my goal? And every time that you start thinking negative or that you start doubting yourself, you ask yourself, is this attitude I'm having helping me to get closer to what I really want? This is a new way of thinking, but it's very practical.
I'm sure, but just the issue is that we all are in a very high level of uncertainty as of now, and definitely, it has a very, just negative influence on our mindset. You know that in Ukraine we have a war, and actually it's influenced all of us.
Very much.
Are touched, yeah, all our families, etc. And especially, the most, just difficult. This is very extremely high level of uncertainty.
Very high level. And I'm telling you, I've been working with people in Ukraine since March 1st, every day. And I tell, Lilia knows this because I often work in the middle of the night, my time, which is morning your time, with psychologists. I'm on a Ukraine task force for the Mental Wellness Society International. And I'm honored to work with a Psychological Association of Ukraine. And I'm telling you that you have these choices, and the attitude is so important so that you're not feeling like a victim.
Yep.
So the A is the activate the change process with taking action. You cannot think your way out of stress. You cannot think your way out of depression. You have to do your way out of stress and act your way out. You can't just think about it. You actually have to take action, and you have to do something. And even if it's a small thing, like I'm not going to say anything negative today, or I'm going to find out what my strengths are, find out the strengths of my coworker or my kids. The other thing with action, the A, the action, you cannot wait for this situation to end, to feel better about yourself. That's not going to help you survive. You cannot also wait to feel better to take action. You have to take action, and then I promise you will feel better. Then the N is for navigating your course of goals. Draw a map. Find what the big picture is. What are the steps I need to take to reach my goal or to change my attitude? It could be, navigating an attitude change or behavior change. The G is go for it. make rapid progress. Don't put the brakes on. Ask yourself, what do I really have to lose by changing my attitude? And again, ask yourself, are my decisions helping me get closer to my goal? Is my decision helping me communicate better at work or communicate better to my family? Or is my attitude a bad one that's going to influence my family? Because your attitude, like I said, is what people are going to remember more than anything else. And then E is expand to other areas of your life where you have the positive influence, whether it's at work or at home. So that's the change model. Any questions with that? I'm so glad you asked this. Oh my gosh, I would have forgotten to do this. And thank you for asking this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Does this make sense, Lilia?
Yes, yes, thank you so much for sharing, Sherry. It's really important and valuable.
It's important right
That's
now.
true. Yeah, that's very important, especially in this time. So we need to have some, just really, we need to keep these goals in mind, but it's difficult, honestly. Yeah, right now, just it's completely changed our, how to say, our perception even, just another reality. So that's why, just other usual ways of working, other usual ways of our life, it's completely changed.
Yes, because Ludmila, there's too much uncertainty right now in your lives. And the enemy's using uncertainty. It's an act of psychological warfare. So you have to know what you are in control of.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling this, to myself each and every day, because, just I'm responsible for my child, and actually this is additional responsibilities. So I'm just, yeah, it's my goal actually to be positive, to create some level of certainty, at least for the child, just because he shouldn't feel the same, as I do, just he needs to have this just he needs to see the future, just in a positive way. He needs to have plans, very nice, and he needs to feel happiness. So that's what I'm, doing, and that's what gives me really good forces, just and actually puts me in a proper mood, I need to tell. But yeah.
Yes, because Ludmila, I've been a mom in a crisis, and I've also studied kids in crisis. And what kids will remember most is the attitude you have. And like I said earlier, this crisis won't last forever, but the lessons you're teaching your child right now will last their lifetime.
Yep.
You're teaching them how to cope.
Yep.
And how to be resilient.
And be a role model, just now for them. So they are just learning how it should be, just and how they should behave. This is a kind of, these patterns, just behavioral patterns, that they will follow, in their adult life. Yeah, that's what I'm also thinking about, and what gives me really, just the right direction, actually, because it's a huge responsibility actually to grow them.
It's a huge responsibility. It is. But responsibility is not negative.
Yep, exactly.
I want you to, I might need help translating this, but responsibility is not one word, it's two words. You can actually make it two words. You can make it responsibility. What is your ability to respond? And when you think of responsibility as those two words, it becomes less of a burden and less stressful. It becomes more a call to action, and you're more empowered. You're empowered to respond in a positive way. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Sure, Sure. Thank you very much, Sherry.
Thank you for sharing. It's like really important. Lily, are there any other questions or comments?
There are no questions and comments so far. 2 insights. So the participants are sharing the comments that they already have the insights. 2 insights already. Juliana has. So I would like to take this this time for getting your feedback on this topic. I think that this topic is really important and interesting for most people. Just 2 minutes of your time, I would like to launch a poll, and you just answer. You just need to choose the one of the variants, so to say.
Okay.
While you are answering, I would also like to tell you that we are having a training in July on managing ambiguity. If you are interested in this topic, in this webinar, so please write me and I will share the details on this training. We already have the announcement of it. We are going to have it with the trainer from London Business School. It will be in English. So the 12th of July, training on managing ambiguity. So 57% of people have answered. So we are waiting 1 minute more. Thank you so much for your answers. It's really important for us to know. Okay. %71%, that's great.
Wow.
76, okay, and a bit more, 80%. We
So
have
glad
80%.
that people are answering. I didn't answer my own, so.
Okay, so let's see. I will share the results. Can you see the results? Yeah, great. 54%. This is very useful and interesting.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sherry. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
If you have any other questions, this is the time for Q&A.
Or comments.
So please.
You know, I have seminars and webinars on making choices. And if you're interested in that, please let Lilia know, because I'd love to come back and do another webinar with you.
Okay, Yevgen, we have something in the chat box. I will read it. It was very interesting, very nice methodology called CARE, which will be very useful in context of remembering that catching our minds is crucial.
Yes.
Very nice. Thank you, Evgeny.
Thank you
for sharing.
Hello, I'm sorry, can I ask my question?
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, thank you, Dr. Sherry Kelly, for your presentation. It was very informative. I wanted to ask, from your perspective, what is the best practice to cope with all our uncertainty, and especially when our global plan is on pause during these recent events, and how to be sane on this pause, what to do exactly to have an ability to continue your plan after it will all ends.
There's so many questions in that one question. Okay, so I want to just go with, I'm going to make it personal. Do you want me to talk about individuals or as a business, as a team?
Individuals, because we are not talking about the business wise. I think it's more individual. It's about our personal plan.
Okay, so the first thing is to try to maintain a position where you're not a victim. So where your level of fear is not raised. You can be alert and protective, but don't think of yourself as a victim. Get back to baseline so you can tell yourself that in this moment that you feel safe and okay. And you might be in a position, if you're a parent, to tell that to a child. The other thing is to keep remembering that this won't last forever, but that the lessons you're teaching your children will last their lifetime. And find what's good about yourself and your family and others. And to keep sane, what we know from past wars is that how people kept sane was by doing something, by taking action, even small actions, helping others, helping someone else. You know, there's a famous book by World War II psychiatrist who was a victim, a prisoner of war, Dr. Viktor Frankl. And the book is Man's Search for Meaning. It's about how he survived World War II. And he basically said, you know, you can take everything from me, destroy everything from me, except for the attitude I choose to have. And that's how, you know, in large part, he survived. Finding support from others that will maybe become a temporary family, or people that you trust to give you support and help is very important. And to find a way that you feel you're making a difference will help you keep sane. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. Thank you. So I think the key insight is to focus on small things and on your daily activity.
And have your goals. And it's important to have goals, even small goals. If it's a goal of today I'm going to get bread, or today I'm going to get ice cream for my child, or today I'm going to connect with 2 people in another country, or today I'm going to make a plan for how I want to change my work structure. That's it. Can be small or big, but make goals every day so that you're not without action. This is how we survive. You're in a psychological survival mode right now. And this is how we survive. And know that, recognize what you are in control of in your life. That was, you know, the attitude that you had, your purpose, your effort that you put into things. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you. So we need to have goal. We need to set goal every day, small or either small or
large.
big, and we need to think and not forget about gratitude. Right? This is a really good like practice in the end of the day.
Very good practice. It helps you survive.
Okay.
You have a choice, and you know you have the choice, and the choices you make will either help get you towards your goal, or they will cause problems or not get you towards your goal.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you for letting me meet you all today. It's been an honor, and it's just been such a great privilege to meet all of you, and I would love to come back again and do another webinar.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, dear colleagues, for being with us today in the end of the working day. Okay, I wish you good luck and see you at our next events. And Sherry, hope to see you soon again. Have a
I hope
nice
to
day.
see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.